all the chaos, even with all the chaos in the dating market, what's become very apparent is that a lot of men don't even want friendships anymore. And a lot of people who have friends, or at least think they have a big social circle, really just have a lot of acquaintances around them. People that don't even know what it entails to even be in a genuine friendship. And I want to start off with a quick story about a couple friends of mine who I still talk to regularly, and someone that they know who they had grown up with, knew since he was like 3 years old. And we would normally, as a group, go to restaurants kind of in the south end of the city we're in, but we would regularly go there probably twice or three times a week. And this friend of theirs normally doesn't show up, but every now and then he'll come through. And it was his birthday a number of months ago. And he had wanted us to go and hang out closer where he lives. Understandably, we were doing it for him. It was his birthday party. So he wanted us to go hang out and meet up at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Federal Way, if anyone's familiar with Federal Way, Washington, but it is about 40 minutes south of where we live and normally would hang out. But we agreed to it, and obviously we were looking forward to celebrate his birthday. He was a little bit younger than us. He was turning, I think, 27 or 28. And when we had gotten there, complete no-show. He didn't give us any heads up. We did talk to him. I guess my friend had talked to him earlier in the day, and the last thing he heard from him was he was on the bus heading there. So we had arrived there. My friend tried to call him, didn't pick up the phone, didn't show up. We just went on with our night as usual, ate food there. And of course, I even told my friends, I said, look, regardless of him flaking or not, I still enjoyed hanging out with you guys. Hopefully everything with him is okay, because you never know. Things can come up. I understand emergencies at least. At the very least, if it's not an emergency, or if you have the ability, even if it is an emergency, have the decency at least tell us that you can't make it, so we're not driving 40 minutes out of our way to go somewhere we normally wouldn't go. But regardless of all that, went on with our night, and I was curious as to what would happen. My friends were a little bit more upset than I was, because I think they've really were the ones that knew him and set up the whole thing. I told them I was just glad to hang out with you guys, but I guess from what they had told me was, he had said something along the lines of, oh, my phone died and this and that, which what was so funny is during the time we were there at the restaurant, my friend was checking his phone, and he was actually active on Instagram at the time while we were at the restaurant. His status on Instagram was that he was active. So that was a flat out lie. Now, where it takes a twist is what we came to find out was, because we would go to these other restaurants, like I mentioned, closer to where we live. And there was a girl in that restaurant that a friend of mine had actually liked and was talking to at the time. So you guys can kind of see where this is going, unfortunately. But while we were at the Federal Way restaurant, which he sent us to, knowing we would not be where we would normally hang out that night, this guy had actually gone to that restaurant and tried to talk to this waitress that my friend was talking to and liked at the time. Also, he could have her to himself or get the girl before he does. And not to go too off topic, but that's something I've seen which is just so ridiculous. This whole idea of survival of the fittest, every man for themselves. If you call yourself a man, if you're in a friendship and that's the way you conduct yourself, I mean, that's just lowest of the low in terms of behavior. There's nothing in that behavior that shows you're a friend, regardless of who it is. You don't do that to someone who's supposed to be your friend. Now, we all found this out. And of course, my first instinct was like, well, he wasn't really a friend of mine to begin with. I really only associated with him because you guys would invite him. You've known him since you were growing up. But I was about done with the guy. I had no interest in continuing to hang out with him. And another one of my friends was too. But one of them still talked to him. As to the reasoning, I don't know why. He explained, I mean, he made a fair point that he'd known him since he was a kid, since he was growing up. So he's like family to him. I understand that. But at the same time, the same thing I said with relationships and dating. Part of self-respect, self-care, is not surrounding yourself with negative people. Having self-respect is not letting people disrespect you and get away with it. And from what I understand, this is not the first time this guy's done something like this. So we keep hanging out without the guy, and eventually he kind of comes back around. We're at the restaurant we normally would hang out with near South Seattle. And this guy tried to punk me in front of some waitress to try to make himself look good or show off. Again, ridiculous behavior. Lowest of the low behavior, trying to act like you're some big shot, trying to walk all over the people that you're supposed to be friends with. You're not a friend of me, I'll tell you that right now. Anyone who does that to someone I know or to me in particular, I'm going to be done with you. And I'm going to speak my mind about it too, which I'm going to get into. Again, a big problem I see is people wanting to just one up another and show off in friendships. That's not a friendship. So when we were at this restaurant, long after that happened, again, I was over the whole thing with the birthday party. Not my idea to invite him, though. Keep that in mind. But the waitress was over at the table, and he was kind of talking to the waitress and flirty, whatever you want to call it. And then he says something that, oh, don't do that. He's going to get mad. Saying like I'd get mad, like I would care about that waitress talking to this guy. And keep in mind, this wasn't the waitress or I was not the one who had liked the waitress, but for some reason he wanted to put it on me. He wanted to point the finger at me and try to punk me and make a joke where I would be the punchline. So after that happened, I was a little bit caught off guard because, like I said, I don't associate with people who are disrespectful like that. But I had put my hand on him after that waitress left and told him, I was pointing him straight up and looked him in the eye, and I told him, in a way that's that I can say on here. I told him, do not try that with me again. And other things I don't really need to get into, just because it wouldn't, I guess, be necessary for the point of this that I'm trying to make. But he understood the memo, and he never did that again. But my point being is, why would people subject themselves to associate with people like this? I've talked to that friend of mine that he's close with. The two friends I normally hang out with, they're very close people. I talk to them all the time. Even one of them I was talking to earlier this evening. But I've had this conversation with him quite a few times about, why are you still associating with this person? They've shown you their true colors. They've shown you what they are going to do. Especially when there's a woman involved. Times I've seen betrayals a lot of the time happen between guy friends. Usually is over a girl. A girl that he likes, or a girl that, even in some cases I've seen a girl that he's in a relationship with, a girl that he recently broke up with. Again, ridiculous. But with all that kind of stuff, right? Like I said, I'm not at all afraid to distance myself from people. Throughout my life, I've cut off many people because of having self-respect. I'm not going to let someone disrespect me like that. And again, I did mention something to him. I did confront him on it. And the few times that I've seen him since then, like I said, it's not my idea to invite him, but that should not happen, and it has not happened since. But I want to make this point because I think a lot of people just don't understand why so many men do not want friends anymore, because they're tired of the disrespect, and ultimately why this kind of disrespect has become so much more normal. I don't know if people even realize it a lot of the time or not, but whether it's intentional. But I've seen a lot of people where you'll even having just casual conversation with them, and they'll say something that is just out of line, that is very disrespectful, very rude, whether they meant it or not. Even recently, I was talking to someone I've known since high school. We were at the gym, and he made some comment about how he doesn't like the job he's at. He's working fast food. There's no shame in work, by the way. I'm going to get into kind of other aspects of that. But he had made some comment about how he wants to quit that job. And I said something along the lines that I was looking for something I could just do part-time. And he was like, oh, you should do that. And I said, sure, fine. And then he made a comment saying, oh, well, I think I'm too good for that job, for working fast food. So it's like, you think you're too good for that, but you think that I'm what? Just good enough? Like, again, whether it was intentional or not, and if you guys think I'm overthinking the comment, let me know. But I don't think people realize sometimes even what they say, because the disrespect has become so normal. You even look at a lot of what people look up to nowadays, and it is just disrespectful behavior. A lot of these social media, really characters, that you see, which I find so wild, is that people will be more interested in learning the background of some influencer or athlete and their story of their life versus their own friends and people they know, even their own family in some cases. I think a lot of the time people just have people around for the sake of not being bored or something like that. Because I'll tell you right now, people like that, I have no, I have no reluctancy to just get out of my life. Life is too short to spend on people like that. Now, with all that stuff, I've also had very good people in my life and people I still keep close now to this day. But what I want to say too is friendship, brotherhood, camaraderie is so important that when I see stuff like that, to me it's harder to watch than the dating chaos, the dating climate, the dating market nonsense. There was a friend of mine a number of years ago who I had mentioned in a previous video, but unfortunately, very sadly, passed away at the age of 30, unexpectedly. And I had gotten that news at 10:30 at night. I remember actually my friend Dev, who is on YouTube as well, called me and told me the news. But a few days before he had passed away, I remember he had texted me saying, "Hey man, let's go to the gym at 3 o'clock." And me being young and reckless and not going to sleep at a normal time, I missed the workout. I wasn't able to hang out with him. I wasn't able to go work out with him. This was one of the last times I talked to him before he passed away. And if I would have known that he was going to pass away in some reality, alternative, whatever you want to call it, yes, I would have been there to hang out with him. You best bet I would have made time to hang out with him because that was one of the last times I would have been able to. You see what I'm saying? Where people don't understand this lack of decency, this lack of kindness. You never know when someone might be out of your life, friend or family. So when I see this kind of behavior between people that are supposed to be friends, it's just ridiculous. There's even times where I've had urges, and I'll be upfront about this, urges to just cut everyone off, to just ghost everyone. And where that comes from is being burned in the past by a lot of people when I was younger. I don't think it's healthy to think that way. It's luckily not a thought that's come up recently. But every now and then I feel like that. And with the whole thing with brotherhood and and camaraderie, is when you look around nowadays and you see so many people just struggling in so many different avenues. Like when I'm at the grocery store, for example, the other day, I like to eat, ground beef, fruit, things I normally get. And I'm just doing laps around the grocery store, looking at the tags, thinking that somehow it's going to magically just get cheaper. And it doesn't get cheaper. And then having people who are not going to uplift you or have your best interests and want you to succeed. Like there's been many times where I've talked to people about starting a business, right? Collaborating on something. And you guys probably can relate to this, I imagine. Where you've had these ideas with people. But it never amounts to anything because either someone's paranoid, people don't trust one another, or they don't have the best interest of the people around them to begin with, so they have this kind of crab in a bucket mentality where they don't want to see the people around them succeed. They don't want to see the people around them succeed. And I understand too, there are times where certain conversations are harder to have in regards to helping people, but are necessary. They're necessary. And for example, with this friend of mine who did pass away unexpectedly, he was doing things that he should not have been doing, I'll put it that way, and it does revolve around the gym. I could have said something, quite frankly, I should have said something. Now, he very well might have had other people telling him that. And maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but at least I tried. At least I tried being a good friend. That's not something I see anymore. It's really not. Respect for one another, decency, is not something I see anymore. There's even times where I would hang out with people. You guys would be out, or we would be out at a restaurant, and one of the friends goes to the restroom or steps outside to take a phone call. And then the few minutes that they're gone, the table just starts gossiping about them. Like, are you kidding me? That's what you call a friendship? I don't think a lot of people know what a friendship really is. Friends aren't people who you just known since high school and middle school, who are going to be pushing negative influences and things on you. Like, I've known people who say, oh, go to the rave, go to the nightclub. Just like when I was in high school, all these negative things that people try to push. People want to be liked, people want to be part of the crowd, people want to be popular, so they give into that kind of stuff. But someone who is going to push, I would argue, objectively negative habits on you is not someone who is your friend, is not someone who has your best interests. They're really not. They're someone who wants to have a partner with them while they're sinking so they feel less alone. That's what I think it is. But as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video. I just want to say, if I think a lot of people understand what I'm talking about. You look around and just be honest with yourself. Do you think a lot of these people that people view as friends in their life are really their friends, or do you think they're just there because it's convenient at the time? Perfect example, social media, which I would even argue, right? Dating stuff has been going on for some time, but this whole thing with friendships has been really a recent phenomenon, a recent thing. With social media, the misunderstanding of what a real friend even is. Not someone who comments under your post, likes your post, which as a friend, sure, if you're on there, you should do that. But there's a lot more to the surface level stuff in a friendship, right? Some of us might have siblings, brothers, cousins, and people like that in our lives. But someone who you're not related to, being there as someone who is a brother is a very significant thing. And it's a shame to see that a lot of people do not understand that and appreciate that. But I'll tell you something. If you have people in your life who don't understand and appreciate that, and especially like I mentioned with the story earlier, if they're actively negative and detrimental people, don't feel bad about distancing yourself from them. But as always, guys, again, appreciate you viewing. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you.